We'll see. So I think we have Chris now.
Do we? We have him indeed. Is he going to pop up in the little window?
I believe so.
Oh, there he is. Oh, look at that. He isn't.
What about it, guys?
What do you do? Is that a school you're in front of?
No, I'm in front of a physical therapy spot. My son, my seventh grader, is inside getting a little therapy after an injury from seventh grade basketball. So, guys, I completely lost track of time. Please forgive me for being late.
Well, no, that's fine. That's fine. And then I wondered, because you and I go back a ways, and we've been on each other's radio shows, and I was like, I forgot to tell him that we do this on Zoom, so I wasn't sure if I made that clear or not. But anyway, it's great to have you on. And I mentioned before, you and I go back. I was talking about this on another show the other day to the year 2000 when we were me, you, and Jeff Dantzler of Georgia were the youngest three announcers in the SEC.
No. David Crane had us beat. David's a year younger than me, so maybe he has you beat, but I know he's got me beat.
I'm still. You got a couple years on. I'm gonna stake my flag on this. I think I'm still a year younger than David, but David was not to take away anything from David. David does a great job. Still at UAB, right?
Correct. I mean, long time now.
Right, but I mean, I'm talking not just baseball, but we were the youngest, but also basketball. Right. You know,
absolutely.
You've done men's basketball at Alabama since what, 03?
No, 02.
02. Okay.
It's my 22nd year doing that.
Good for you, man. You've seen a lot during that time, going back to the Gottfried era.
Yeah.
And then of course
Mark
Jeff
turned 60 this weekend, by the way, which hit me between the
I
eyes.
know, right?
Considering I covered him, or not covered him, but I saw him play in college as well.
Isn't that crazy? Crazy? Yeah. He just gave me a Facebook request. I was flattered. I didn't know if Mark really even knew who the hell I was. But anyway, I say all that for those that don't know Chris's work, and I know a lot of you do. If you're an Alabama fan, you without question do. For the rest of you that tune in, this is a national show. Chris has been covering Alabama football, basketball, and baseball for over 25 years, right? I'm not trying to age you, but
no, it's true. It's 25 plus now, I guess, on football and some cable stuff on baseball and basketball as well. So it's been a while.
The old CSS era. We will do a whole show.
So,
we got to do a CSS
Hey,
reunion.
I go before that. ACN, the Alabama Cable Network. Man, way back, the forerunner to CSS.
Wow, were you guys using like old Soviet equipment to get that thing on the air?
Sputnik spare parts are what we used to get that.
That's fantastic.
That's a heck of a pull right there, by the way. No, it goes way back. I was thinking of some stuff the other day. I covered. Here's one for you. You ready for this?
Yeah.
I was. This may have been before I was doing the cable broadcast. This is how far back. I was working for a paper called the Over the Mountain Journal and took a picture as sports editor of our all over the mountain team, which featured Homewood High School's Cole Kublik.
Wow.
I also did on television, so it would have been about the same time, the first ever start for a ninth grade quarterback on varsity at Pelham High School, Tyler Watts. And I did the state championship game years later with a sophomore named John Parker Wilson. Again, all high school broadcasts. So, and even worse, yes, I call the high school basketball games of the American Idol Taylor Hicks. That's how old I am.
That's how old you are.
I am.
You mentioned Watts. I remember doing back when it was CSS for TV. We would do we do the pay-per-view. Believe it or not, people used to have to pay money sometimes to see SEC football games.
That's right.
And then the non-con games we would do for the replay, so your fans would get to see kind of a more dare I say, informed broadcast, because you'd have the announcer from each team. So I worked with David Crane on that game at South Carolina. It was 37-36 was the final score. It's one of the more exciting games that I got a chance to do. That was, I guess, the Mike Shula era, right?
Frangione. It's Fran.
That was Fran? Okay.
They ran the option the whole day.
That's right.
And they couldn't stop it, and Holtz Holtz told Skip to open up the offense, and Phil Petty threw it all over him, and
all over the place.
And then last minute hit a tight end drag in the back of the end. I was at that game, so
there you go.
that's how I'm remembering that one.
Filling in the gaps.
That was one of Fran's years there.
Well, let's go in the time machine and go back to the present here, Chris. 25 or so years later, and what has just happened. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot with the very first question. Then we'll get to the easy ones. Then we'll get to the fluffy ones. We all know, and by the way, I voted Kalen DeBoar College Football Coach of the Year before Nick Saban ever retired. So I'm a Kalen DeBoar guy. But we all know 2 years ago, Kalen DeBoar would never have been considered for a job like this because he was still kind of building up his resume and putting his stamp on the sport. Paid his dues. I love the story, et cetera, et cetera. So if Nick Saban had retired in 2022 instead of 2024, who do you think Alabama would have lured to Tuscaloosa?
Ooh, man. That's a great question.
I told you I'm coming off the top rope with the first question. Yeah. I even set off a car alarm with that question. It was so hot.
You did. And the guy's sitting in his own freaking car. I don't know.
Come on, buddy.
Can't turn that off. Got to be an Auburn fan.
Boring.
Sorry. No. Good Lord, I apologize. But again, the man's literally sitting in his
car with the alarm going off.
Turn it off. Either that or I'm witnessing a car theft. And I'm just not being a good citizen and helping. No.
Yeah, report that man quickly.
My apologies.
That's all right.
2022, man, I don't know. I really have no clue. I didn't see this one coming from Greg Byrne, but they call him the ninja for a reason. He knows how to go out and pretty stealthily find the guy that he wants, identifies him, and look, he said that he consulted with Coach Saban. I have no reason to believe that he wouldn't have or that he didn't. But I think he engineered this search himself. Mm-hmm. Man, I just don't know. I'm guessing you've got a name in mind, or you probably wouldn't have gone that way. And I don't mean that in a negative way at all.
Yeah, no. I mean, I've said this for years on this show and others. Going back to when it was peak Dabo, that was obviously the rumor, and yes, he's an alum. But I never thought that was going to come into play, and obviously, it did not. I don't think that even gained any traction this time. The more recent name has been Lane Kiffin, and just knowing what I know about his time in Tuscaloosa, and knowing what I know about how much he loves Oxford, and knowing that 8 wins in Oxford ain't that bad, and the fans are okay with that. Lose a game in Tuscaloosa, and it's the end of the world. So I eliminated those two names over the years. And then I started thinking, Dan Lanning certainly was a name I was thinking they would go after. And the truth is, Chris, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're never going to know who else got a phone call. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
if anybody did get
if anybody did, right.
Right.
But I mean, if you're doing your due diligence as an AD, and Greg's a sharp guy, like even if DeBoer is your number one choice all along, that's not the only person you send out feelers to, right? No. I mean, that's the way these things typically go.
Look, I don't know because I haven't talked with him one-on-one about this yet. It's been a whirlwind. I saw him actually the night before Coach Saban made his decision and his announcement to the team. And I don't think Greg knew. I don't know that he did. We were talking about some other things briefly, but he gave no indication then. That's just the way he wouldn't have told me anyway, but the only time I saw him since was at the press conference itself. So we've had no time to discuss all of this. I do know a little bit about how things worked on the basketball search that resulted in Nate Oates being there. And you're right. He had another candidate. I won't mention the name, but it is very, very familiar. He was going to meet with him. And when he finished the interview, the meeting that he and then Jeff Purinton, who's now the athletic director of Arkansas State, but he was senior associate at Alabama at the time, they went and met with Nate Oates, and they both felt like that it was, all three of them felt like it was a match. Jeff and Nate from the Bama side. Nate wanted the Bama job. They all slept on it and decided to meet the next day. And this other candidate they had a meeting scheduled with that day. And Nate and Jeff looked at each other and said, I don't really think we need to talk to anybody else, do? And he said, no, this is our guy. And they locked him in.
Right.
And I will simply say that coach they were going to meet with wound up at another school within their region of the country and, has done well. But they got the right guy. Yeah. And look, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I really like everything I have seen and heard about him. I spent 30 seconds with the man. That's it, one-on-one. That's all I've spent talking to him. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that we've been able to develop a relationship. He would know me, as my father would have said, from Adam's house cat if I walked up right now. But I was really impressed. But also some colleagues of ours, Mike, is I know
same guy. He's still in the car.
Guy, he's got jumper cables. The battery doesn't work, but God love him, the dadgum horn does. So anyway, come on.
This is entertaining. Don't be distracted by this, Chris. This is actually entertaining to see you go through this.
As you know, there's not a lot that rattles me, but Alby's over here ticking me.
You're unflappable. You're going to get through this.
No, I've been flapped. I promise you that. So anyway, what was the question again?
Well, you were DeBoar. You were talking about DeBoar, not knowing him yet.
Yeah,
right.
But I know a lot of guys that you and I know well reached out to me and said, you're going to love this guy.
Yeah.
They've dealt with him. They're impressed with him. They know who he was. I'll tell you something that I do like, and you referenced this 2 years ago, didn't know who he was. I'm not so sure that 6 months ago I would have known who the guy was, or 6 weeks ago I would have known who he was, even though he had great success at Washington. The thing is, though, there are a lot of people, Mike, that will look at the NAIA championships and won't find that overly impressive. I called two of them. I called a baseball and a basketball national championship for Birmingham Southern in the NAIA. At the highest level of that organization, the teams that are there, the coaches that are there are, in my opinion, as good or better than more than 2/3 of what you face in NCAA Division I. Mm-hmm. There are programs that run themselves at the highest level, and their teams can compete with almost anybody. Maybe outside the top 20 of Division I they couldn't compete with. But you know what? In football especially, most teams outside the top 20, 25 of NCAA Division I can't compete with those teams either. Not in the top 10. So,
to your point,
those are really good coaches.
Somebody got on my nerves. I'm not going to say who because everybody on this set here knows who he is, but was saying, none of that matters. Nobody cares what he did at NAIA. And my point was that's an ignorant statement because
no question.
Because you're dealing with equal. Nobody has a huge advantage at that level. My Jimmys and Joes are the same as your Jimmys and Joes.
That's right.
My weight room is the same as your weight room. And therefore, if I'm going to win a bunch of championships, I'm beating your rear end with the same level of talent. So absolutely it matters. The guy can flat out coach. That's not the question. The question becomes,
can you recruit at that level? Can you
And I'm not even worried about recruiting. I think that the general concern from some of Bama Nation, and it's a very adamant fan base, and when you lose the best that's ever done it, there's going to be a little panic that sets in. There's going to be a little bit of, no matter who we bring in, it's not going to be good enough. But the job itself can swallow people whole.
No
See,
doubt.
Nick already went through that with the Dolphins in the NFL. He already took the bullets. He already had the thick skin. Nothing can prepare you for a job like Alabama following Nick Saban. Nick followed, not to be critical, Mike Shula. He followed DeBose. This is a different deal. And so that's going to be, to me, Chris, and I want to get your thoughts on it. The biggest challenge is just you're going to have the thickest skin imaginable and not be overwhelmed by the job. Not the 60 minutes on the field every Saturday, but everything on the periphery.
Mike, I agree. And guys, that's the impression that I get, is that he's not afraid of Nick Saban and his legacy. He embraces it. It's why he took the job. Mm-hmm. Let's understand something. He left a great job.
Right.
University of Washington's a really good job. Don James, what a national title at Washington. There have been pockets where Washington football is as good as anybody in the country. They're about to be in the Big Ten. It's going to be a tough deal going cross country. I get that. But on the field, Washington will be able to compete. When they've got the right guy there, you can win at Washington at the highest level. He was playing a week longer than we were at Alabama, beat a Texas team that we didn't beat. The guy can coach. So he's proven that in a short amount of time. So, can he recruit in the Southeast? He's hired coaches that I think can. I think it's become such a national sport, and recruiting has become national, that's going to be fine for him. But I think he also has kind of a down-to-earth approach that high school coaches in the state of Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Georgia, areas that you all have to recruit, as well as Florida, are going to understand him and respect him, and he's going to have an appreciation and a level of respect for them that's going to allow him to get into those schools and do what you have to do at Alabama to have your core and your base year after year. And I'm not concerned. I think the guy's going to do it well. He's embraced, as I said, following Coach Saban. He's already made it clear. He said it in the press conference. He goes, because Coach, I've seen the pictures of the office. He's got an office in the stadium at Bryant-Denny. He's going to have a space there as long as he wants it, visibility there as long as he wants it. And Kalen DeBoar has said, I need one thing from you every day. You can give me as many as you want, but I need you to give me one thing every day where we can get better. And I think he genuinely means that. I don't think it was lip service. I think he wants input. And knowing Nick Saban, I believe he's going to give that to him without infringing on the fact that it's Kalen DeBoar's program. I think he'll be that consultant for him because I think he loves doing that, having input. Not because he wants to have input. I just think he loves football. And I think he loves Alabama now after spending 17 years there. And he wants to help the guy as long as the guy wants help.
One thing we've learned from Hall of Fame coaches, even ones that are good at golf, like Nick is, like Steve Spurrier was, even people who love golf get bored of golf. Like, you got to have something else that motivates you. And the car dealerships, that's something, moving a few Ferrari units, that's a good deal. But
he'll be at game day. I'll be shocked if he's not at game day. I think he'll be there next year. Nobody's told me that. Look, I think we all know that he's going to be great at that.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a great fit, and he'll enjoy the interaction with coaches.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be a fantastic, you talk about following legends, people following him. He's a guy that's not going to be afraid to follow, Lee Corso and his popularity. He'll be different. He ain't put no headgear on, I'll tell you that. But he'll make his picks, I think, and he will be different, but he'll be great.
Yeah.
And everybody will want to hear what he says on Saturday,
Absolutely.
too. It'll be funny because
you don't.
You'll now have Nick Saban on one and Urban Meyer on the other. Speaking of DeBoar, and Chris, I couldn't really think of what to compare this to because most of the time when you follow a legend, they get the guy that has connections, or Alabama's done that a couple times with Mike DeBose and Ray Perkins, or they'll get some guy to school close like Les Miles. Rarely do they go across the country and get a guy that's only coached at this level for 4 years, and 2 was at Fresno. The only thing I could compare it to is Dennis Erickson taking over for Jimmy Johnson at Miami. He had only been at Washington State for a couple of years, cut his teeth at Idaho and Wyoming, and he went there and won big. They went 63-9. I mean, he definitely kept it rolling. And so I think, don't you kind of feel like this is just not really like even this year, what you would have, the type of hire you'd expected Greg Byrne to make. And also, let's say Bama doesn't recruit the number one class in the country every single year. Don't you think in today's portal era where you got roster transition, that the teams with the best coaches now, the game day coaches like DeBoar, like the winners, the guys that can out coach you and take yours and beat you and take his and beat you, don't you think those guys are really more suited to come out on top than maybe just like an Uber recruiter like a Dabo Swinney?
I think being at some of these programs we talked about, like Mike and I were talking about with the NAIA programs, the fact that those guys know how to adjust from year to year, because you did that a lot in the NAIA, I think that does help. Now, you got to be able to recruit. You still got to be able to develop players, because I think that's going to be your core and your base, especially at somewhere like Alabama. But you better be able to go out and get whatever the game is. You better be able to play it. Here are the rules. That's what Saban did for so long. He asked the question, literally asked the question, whether it was hurry up, no huddle, whether it was the RPOs, whether it was the portal and all of this. He literally would ask the question, is this what we want college football to be? And then when the answer came back yes, he went, all right, hold my beer, and just did it better than everybody, as well as or better than everybody else. And I think that's what, Kalen DeBoar is probably going to have a very good chance to do in Alabama, and I think he's going to be just fine.
Chris, we'll let you out on this. For those, again, that don't know, you've been with the radio coverage and TV for Alabama for so long. Eli Gold is the voice you've gotten a chance to fill in and did admirably well, I might add. I know what that's like, chomping at the bit to do football in a role like that. Let's just say you and I were kindred spirits when I was back doing radio in the SEC. But you were around Nick Saban on so much of the shoulder programming that goes on. So even when you weren't calling Alabama games, you were around him. You did many of the key interviews during all the national titles and everything else. Maybe a story that you can leave us with that sticks out in your mind of some of the correspondence and interaction that you had with the GOAT.
Yeah, I've done this television show for, I think I did the last 12 years, all but one season when I had some health problems and had to miss a year 4 years ago. But otherwise, I did the TV show for more than a decade. And this past year I did the play-by-play for all the road games minus the Iron Bowl, and did the postseason games, and really honored that I got a chance to call the last SEC championship and the last deal. But I'll tell you one, again, there's 1,000, but the one that every time I've been asked the same question, I've gone to whatever pops in my head first. And the one that pops in my head first was the year that he lost in the regular season to LSU. You remember that game of the century? We didn't have NFL games at that point that year. And so college football was even bigger than it normally is. And so we had the game of not football, I'm sorry, it was baseball maybe, that didn't have the playoffs. So we had the game of the century. And it turned out to be the game that didn't matter, because Alabama got the opportunity to play LSU again, and they beat them in the national championship 20-0, I think.
The first one was 9-6, right?
First one was 9-6.
Yeah.
And I was in the locker room after that game. And, everybody talks about the blow-ups with Nick Saban. But those were so few. Now, they're all memorable. And again, if there are eruptions, his were always Mount Vesuvius. I mean, it was just, you never forget them when they happen. But this was one of the few occasions after a loss that I ever witnessed. But this one was, I think, very typical for those of us that were privileged to be around it. Everybody's down, everybody's so low, it's like the season's over. And he told them, he said, guys, I just want you to understand. He said, this is, I know how disappointed you are. I'm so proud of you. You played so hard. It was a great effort, but you need to understand. He goes, they got some tough games ahead, and there are some other scenarios that can happen where the this team can still get where you want to be. We can still get to the championship. Some dominoes are going to have to fall, but there's some tough ones ahead, and we got to go to work tomorrow, and we've got to get ready because you're going to get another opportunity. And when that opportunity comes, we got to be ready. And man, if the dominoes didn't fall just right, just the way he said, and Alabama got their chance, and they were ready when that chance came and took advantage. And that was just, again, in the disappointment of that moment, to see them respond the way they did was amazing. And
it seemed, I was just going to say, it seems like that was a trend throughout Nick's time.
Sure.
Every time you lost a game, sky is falling, boom, win the SEC championship.
Right. How many times did guys write that his career was over, that he was done? I mean, they wrote it after each of the Ole Miss losses, and he turned around to Hugh Freeze, and he turned around and won the championship both seasons.
Right.
There's just, the guy went out on top. He had the lead with 4 minutes to go in the national semifinal, and truth is, probably beats Washington just like Michigan did if they win that ball game. So he's the guy's amazing. I'm glad he got to go out at the top of his game still. In fact, it may have been his best coaching job this year, to be quite honest. But I'm glad he's getting to enjoy an opportunity to enjoy retirement, and he and Terry have earned it. And there's no way Alabama could ever repay what he did to rebuild the confidence and belief that Alabama can be great once again, and he's left it in a condition where it can continue to be among the elite in college football.
That's the beauty of it, Chris, because I talk so often, when you hire a legend, and I don't know if you would have called him a legend when he got the Bama job, but he was obviously very good and very coveted.
Already had a title.
Already had a title, right. And typically when you hire a legend, it rarely ends well. Like you have a good run with a legendary coach, but then he leaves a little bit of a mess behind for the next guy.
Right.
It's happened across the country at a number of jobs. Nick Saban is leaving the keys to a Ferrari that's got like 100 miles on it. That's got, souped up with all the bells and whistles. So that should be noted in his overall biography of what he's been able to do. It's how, not just what he did at Bama, but how he's leaving Bama.
People forget how LSU was mediocre for 20 years. Before he got there.
And he left it in such good shape, Les Miles couldn't screw it up.
That's right.
Ed Orgeron ended up winning a national title there.
Well, LSU's a great program. Don't get me wrong.
It is.
But we found out Les Miles is pretty much an idiot. And, it took him a while to screw it up.
Right.
I mean, that's people, whenever anybody ever talked to me about Saban retiring, I always said, I was like, look, it's like the guy that you get a car from, the wheels are bald, tires are bald, and these oil change, the upholstery sucks. Yep. Like his car, he's got the mileage tracked, it's clean, new tires, oil's changed religiously, it runs like a dream.
Don't wreck it.
Yeah, don't wreck it. Don't mess it up. So, that's the beauty of him.
Don't wreck it is in the form of go out there and win 6 more national championships, Kalen DeBoar. That's even if you are a really good driver, that's a tough thing to do for sure.
Just 3 in 6 years. We'll worry about the other 3 later.
Okay, that seems fair.
6 years.
Yeah, 3 in 6 years. No pressure. No biggie. Chris, really appreciate you taking out the time.
Here, good to talk to you.
It's good to. You and I have been cohorts for so long. I consider you a friend. I'm so happy you had a chance to fill in on some games, and the future obviously bright with you on Bama Radio. And on top of everything else, if you didn't win enough awards, the fact that you did this segment with an Auburn fan clearly trying to sabotage it with a car alarm in the parking lot behind you speaks volumes about your overall professionalism and just stick-to-itiveness.
That's, it's a new year. We're trying to be kinder, gentler here, and I feel sorry for the dude because it's for Alabama. It's pretty cold right now, and he's sitting over there trying to get that thing started. But hopefully, AAA will help him out. I just want the buzzer to quit going off on him.
Yeah,
guys, y'all be good. Thanks for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, bud.
Chris.
Sorry I was late. You guys.
No problem. We'll see you down the road at a basketball arena soon.
You got it.